I'm Ivy.
I'm Rachel, and we are Swords and Sapphics, a podcast all about representation, queer media, women with a capital W, and a little bit of nonsense.
So start sharpening your swords, sip your tea, and join us as we obsess over the wonderful beings that are women.
Hello.
Hello. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about something, and we're talking to somebody again.
Well, wait. Have you noticed that this is our beginning every episode since we started having people on?
Yeah, because we have people on nearly every episode
I
now,
know.
so we
We do it
probably should.
every single time. We don't
We need
change
to
it.
change the format now.
But I kind of love it. It's like a plot twist right off the
Yeah.
get.
Yeah. So we're talking to Ellie Williams, who also writes under the name Ellie Rose. And Ellie writes lots of sapphic, plus size, neurodivergent romances with a lot of kink and retellings. Um, yeah. So we're gonna ask her all about what it's like to do that and where her inspiration comes from.
But
But
before we get to that,
yes,
do you know what I'm gonna ask you?
I think you might ask me what have I been enjoying this week?
No.
No?
I'm gonna ask you what have you been enjoying lately?
Oh, okay, my mistake.
Yeah, my
I
blunder.
don't know you at all.
No, I'm a complete stranger now.
I've been enjoying lots of things lately. Most of them have not been media because I'm just a hobby gremlin. I've been painting a lot. But I finished Rachel McLean's first book in the Dorset crime series, The Corfe Castle Murders, yesterday. And even though we've talked about it before, I'll talk about it again. Because I finally got to the sapphic interactions. I met Elsa. Is she called it Elsa or Elsie? I've forgotten. Um, who will soon be Leslie's girlfriend in the foreseeable. And yeah, it was just I would never usually pick up crime, but it's nice to do that. Like
Yeah.
it's nice to have something different. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Leslie is a queen. It's very much a story about how how many different forms of patriarchy takes, whether it's within her office or the suspect she's investigating. Like there's so much gross masculinity there. And also but Leslie's very calm-headed about it and she overpowers them every time. So it's always fun to read.
Couldn't be me.
No, I know. I'm like, why doesn't she hate him? But I guess she's a better woman than I am.
Yeah.
I would have killed him myself. I would not be a detective anymore. I would be the murderer.
Uh-huh. Yes, hey, honestly.
Yeah. I've been reading How We End by Ellen Juniper, which is a zombie apocalypse book, and the main character is trans. I feel like I've talked about it before on the podcast. What else am I reading? Oh, I started listening to Dana Hawkins in audiobook. In Walked Trouble. It's so good because they're both bartenders and they're like competing to get a raise or yeah, something like that. And she's really hot. She's really hot. She's a hot bartender. She's got smoky eyes. She grew up in foster care, so she's got trauma. She boxes.
Oh.
And one of them already got hurt. You know, I love my getting hurt scenes.
Oh,
So
do you? Never. Oh
yeah.
my
See,
gosh.
now you don't know me at
I
all.
don't. Oh my God. Who are you?
I don't mention it that often, so it's understandable.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Um,
I know what you're forgetting.
is it Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes?
That too, but also
Well,
Bride.
yeah, I started Bride, but then I started writing a proposal like 20 pages in, so I don't have a vibe from it yet. I
Oh
don't
my
have
God.
anything to say about it yet.
Well, I guess
Yeah,
I allow for a
yeah.
while. We'll see.
But I finished Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes last week, and then we watched it. Cinema is back, baby. It's been back for a while, but I'm too anxious to go to the cinema, so I wouldn't know.
It is what it is.
It was beautiful. It was really beautiful. And Tom Blythe just got casted alongside the girlie from My Lady Jane.
Emily Bader, better. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. But
Baden.
speaking of, every time I'm trying to think of what is the show called, My Lady Jane, I'm like, Emily in Paris? No, that's something else. I have heard everything is just like Big Emily, and I can't figure out the name because like Jane is very similar to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of My Lady Jane, speaking of My Lady Jane, it got hella queer last time we watched it.
Oh yeah.
I think we've got like 2 episodes left, maybe 3, and it's gay. It's so gay. The king is black and gay.
Yeah. We love
And
to
he's
see.
in love with a man who turns into a cat. So really,
Look,
how gay can a man be if he likes pussy?
yeah. And also, his sister, I'm sure, is gonna be also very queer and in love with a woman who's turned into a dog.
Oh yeah.
So she does like a bitch.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She needed a moment.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I was fantasizing about the dog girly.
Yeah. Understand.
Yeah, it's really great. We need to push the agenda again because it got gay.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's so good. It's so good, yeah.
Plus, Rob Brydon wears dangly earring there, which is very cunty of him. So
Like, in a weird way, he's really doing it for me.
completely get it. All the man has to do is put in an earring, and suddenly he's like the level of queer that I love.
I also really enjoy when men know how to make fun of themselves and be like silly and goofy and just in a weird ass costumes and their like weird ass leggings.
Yeah.
That part is really doing it for me.
All the men are pathetic.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I love about it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Even the slutty brother of the love interest is.
Oh yeah.
I'm falling in love with him now because
Honestly,
he's so
the first 2 episodes, he was like,
I know.
I was getting such a weird, like, big ick. But I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. They're just so pathetic.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what have you been reading?
Oh my gosh. I have been reading books by Elsie Silver. I'm in my cowboy era. And I think, look, I think my cowboy era is gonna end here. Did you say yeehaw?
Yeehaw.
Amazing. Thank you for that. It really threw me just now. Okay, so yes, I read Heartless, Powerless, and Reckless, which gets very confusing very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it. It's fun. I got accidental pregnancy after a toxic marriage and divorce. It was the best. I didn't even tell you the best part. His like manager or someone had his like the phone that she got the number for. So when she texted him that she's pregnant, he didn't know.
Oh.
He came in like next year, 9 months after. And she was like, why are like he moved in next door and she was like, why are you doing this? Because she thought he knew about the baby and just was like
being
hurting
annoying.
her. Yeah. But then he found out that he has a daughter and he like broke. So good. So good. Yeah. And then it took like a long time for her to trust him that he's interested in her and so it was very good. Yeah. I also read Heartstopper Volume 5.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing really to add to that. I loved it, of course. And I don't know if I talked about Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood, which is a newish book. Yeah, it was very different from her usual books. It was because in all of her books and the short stories, the characters are somewhere on the asexual spectrum.
Mhm.
This was not the case. They started sleeping together before they had a relationship. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I guess there's nothing more to add to that, really. I'm just enjoying a lot of things that I'm reading lately, except A Deal with the Elf King by Ellie Rose. I was very excited for it. It was like Hades, Persephone, Beauty and the Beast retelling, where she's taken by the Elf King as his bride, and she was like the human queen. And I was very excited for it. It didn't
The
deliver.
cover's beautiful as
Yeah,
well.
all the covers are beautiful. Like she has a whole series, I think like 3 series. Every cover is one of the most beautiful I've ever seen. Just wasn't that good. I
Yeah.
felt if it went through at least one more edits, it would be better. There was like the repeating of words in one sentence. It just got too much, and once you start noticing that, you of course see nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and the characters could use a lot of work about like the motivation and the reaction, and it was the speech. They were saying like the way they were talking was very unnatural,
Mm-hmm.
and it was from the first person, so that even more like irks me because you could have that in your thoughts.
Yeah,
It didn't
yeah.
have to
I
be
get that.
said.
Yeah. I did say to you, like, I can read a bad book if there's good dialogue. I
Yeah.
can tolerate it because, like, the dialogue is what makes the characters interact and stuff. But if
Yeah.
there's bad dialogue, then it's just impossible.
It was fine, but as it went on, and again, like once you start noticing what upsets you, like it just keeps going
Mm-hmm.
and you see nothing else. So that was the case.
Yeah.
And I finished it on audiobook. It was narrated by the same narrator that Throne of Glass,
Mm-hmm.
and she's really good at her job. So she made it much better just with her
What publisher is it with?
oh my gosh, it was first published. She published it years ago by herself,
Yeah.
and then Ariane picked it up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I get it with self-publishing because you don't have the funds to buy out the amount of edits it takes, because for traditional publishing you get the structural edit, then you get the copy edit, then you get like another copy edit and the proofread. So like by the end of it you've had like 4 sets of eyes on it, at or 3 at least. And I think indies don't always realize that that's like the standard amount of edits. And growing off base, I recently discovered the read aloud function, and honestly, it saved kindling from being kindling in a trash fire.
I don't believe that, but it is once you read stuff out loud, especially the speech, it takes on something
Yep.
like completely different.
You
Yeah.
Because it's just, I don't know if it's like a neurodivergent thing or if everybody has it, but as an author, like it's so, because it's such a vast work. By the end of it you've written like 90,000 words, so you're trying to focus on the plot and also what the line before it said and also what the 5 paragraphs before it said, so it's just impossible to get like any consistency. So reading aloud really helps me.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I've been noticing recently as well, because I was so insecure about the way I was repeating words during my edits. I was noticing it as well when I was reading things, and I hate it now, and now I can't get it out of my brain.
I get it. But as
But
long
yeah,
as you don't repeat it in one sentence, I think you're
but that's the
fine.
thing. That's the publisher's job as well.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? I finished The Flash, which I think I talked about. It was just very emotional for me to see it all end. And then I went back to Batwoman. So I'm
Mhm.
watching that. And I also am rewatching Percy Jackson because a teaser came out. And Percy's like so big and grown up, and he has a deeper voice because he very clearly went through the worst of his puberty in the first season,
Mhm.
because by in the first episode he's very teeny tiny, and by the last one he's taller than Leah, the actress of Annabeth. Oh my god. So yeah, I love them all so much. Every now and then something happens and I'm like, these are my babies. I feel such a like a motherly instinct over all of them.
Yeah,
Honestly, love it, love it.
yeah.
And I also went to see a queer play.
Yes, you did.
I went to see, because we had Pride Festival last week, and so that was a part of the festival, and it was Joan of Arc. Is that yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. And it was about how she went through a lot of monologues about how the words like ma'am and miss is not really where she fits. Then she went on to like talk about queerness, and there was a lot of metaphors of how women don't fit a society of men, and also like how queer people don't fit in society of straight people. And so there was a lot of conversation about the vocabulary and how it doesn't fit all queerness and all queer people, including her. At the end, she had sort of a monologue about like the binarity. It's not a word, I guess, but how about like gender and stuff. And what I really enjoyed was that it ended with like Joan's trial, and before she went to be burned, the character in the play was like, you know what happens now? I'm gonna get burned, but our writers have decided that you've seen a lot, like enough of great deaths, so this is not how we're gonna end it. And that, like, it felt very special. That one felt very special. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't the best, but it wasn't. It was very weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
I think that's like how you can tell when it's made by queer people, because a not like a straight person could very easily make the same play, but there would be those tropes, like they would just kill her at the end without a thought, and like it probably wouldn't have been as deep an introspection about like, you know, like not conforming to gender and things.
Yeah. I'm glad I went to see it. It was something different.
Yeah. They think that queer people don't notice these things, but
yeah, you do.
hard not to. Yeah.
It's the little things. It's exactly like the little small details that only like a queer person could really like pay attention to.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was fun. That was interesting. Again, like it was such a strange experience, because at once I was like, oh my gosh, this really speaks deep into my soul, and then they were just running across the stage and falling and getting up and running again. I was like, what the fuck is happening? I don't understand anything. This is so weird. And then again, like I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. At some point, like she started screaming like, I'm not a man, and like with so much anger and like frustration. And it was like, oh my god, like you know that kind of frustration, you know that kind of anger. It was very interesting. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think that's it.
I've been watching The Reluctant Traveler with Eugene Levy. Eugene is not a huge traveler, which is why it's called Reluctant Traveler, and it's very it's very funny, but it's also very beautiful, like, because he always says he'd just be in the hotel, like he doesn't go out and explore things, and he's kind of forced to do these things, and sometimes he can be very deadpan and very like moody about it, and it's hilarious. But I'm learning a lot of things as well. Like there was a really gorgeous episode where he was in Utah. He goes to the fanciest hotels, but he always makes sure to go like into the culture as well. And he goes to Utah and he talks with some Native Americans, and they're stargazing. And whereas like white people always say they look up at the sky and it reminds them how insignificant they are. It's like the opposite for Native Americans. Like because they're part of it.
This is really creepy because that was like a whole conversation in the play.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like looking at the stars and the guy was like, it makes you feel like very small and like you're don't really matter. And John was like, oh, I feel the opposite.
Yeah.
Like you're part of this whole thing. That's real, like that gave me chills. I was like, okay.
We just live the same lives in different fonts.
Honestly, we can do. It's true.
Yeah. But it's just very beautiful. And I discovered that the sun doesn't set in summer for like the northernmost parts, like Finland and Sweden and Iceland. No, not Iceland. Maybe Iceland. I don't know. I don't think Iceland was involved. Sorry to bring you into this.
Warm apologies to Iceland.
But yeah, like, can you fucking imagine having nothing but daylight? The sky never changing. Like, obviously the sun moves across the sky. But fucking hell, I think I'd go mad.
Yeah.
I
But
feel
isn't
like
that, I don't know when I see it or if I just made it up in my brain. Someone said it's like mentally challenging to be in these places because like you have like so long without
yeah.
the peace of darkness, like just to take a breath throughout the
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. Like, I know when it's getting dark that I don't have anything left to do.
day.
When it gets lighter in summer and it stays lighter for longer, I'm sat there till like 8, 9 o'clock thinking I should still be being productive.
Yeah.
Like, it would drive me insane. But then it gets to like October, November, they don't have any fucking daylight because it's like it's the north. Like they have a few hours of daylight every day, if that. I just couldn't cope with that.
Yeah.
But somehow like Finns and Swedish people are like the happiest people on the planet.
Well, I guess it's because like to us such a foreign concept because like we're used to that. Like if we grew up there, it would be something different. And I get
Yeah.
that. Like it would be difficult to move to get into that.
Yeah. Because in rural places, like their relationship is completely with nature. It's not with fucking 9 to 5 days and having to do something ridiculous. They're just looking to get food in the forest and like they have a community and stuff, and it's just not like that for us. But yeah, I just can't, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't know that there were places where the sun wouldn't set. I genuinely didn't know that. I can't get my head around it still.
Yeah.
I've been telling you about it for weeks. I keep bringing it up because I don't know what to do with this information.
Like I knew that that is happening somewhere, but I didn't know in Europe. Because Europe, like that's the part that really like threw me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, it's really good. If you like travel documentaries, I would really recommend this one. It's great. It's really
anything on Apple TV, if you're being honest. Once again, we're not sponsored by Apple, sadly, but oh my fucking God, they have the best shows.
And I would recommend really looking at what there is because I didn't know that existed there. I was like, oh my God, Eugene Levy did this show. And it's got like 3 seasons already and it's won awards and I had no idea about it.
They have so many documentaries. Like, of course, they have The Prehistoric Planet, which I love. David Attenborough narrated it. He was part of that. He has also like I think 2 more nature documentaries. Then there is one narrated by Tom Hiddleston. I mean, like big names.
Yeah. I think I'll be there for a while. It's really great. Other than that, I've just been watching my usual stuff. I'm really enjoying Only Murders in the Building, but Cara Delevingne is there and just kind of pissing me off.
Yeah.
It's an annoying entity. She made me not enjoy the sapphics. Mabel, Selena Gomez's character was with Cara Delevingne for a minute. But I was like, but that's Cara Delevingne. It's not sapphic to me because it's Cara Delevingne. I don't enjoy it. I would rather see her kissing a man than Cara Delevingne.
No. I'm really enjoying I really enjoyed Theo.
I'm really enjoying Theo. I knew in the first do you know what? my favorite thing is the way that they produce his scenes, and
Yes.
they block out the sound.
Yes.
So
Yes.
good. Like,
So
it's
good.
like you're in the perspective, because for those who don't know, Theo is deaf.
Mhm.
So when it's from his perspective, they block out they muffle the sound so that it's like you're him.
Yeah.
You're
It's
hearing
really,
what he
yeah, I love it.
hears.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. They produced a lot of things really well in
Yeah.
Only Murders. To say it's like just a comedy, I wanted to say, but it's really great. I really love it.
Well, we should get to the
Yes.
interview part.
Yes.
Enjoy.
Well, thank you for joining us. First of all, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, hi, I am Ali Williams. I also write as Ellie Rose. I am a writer, I'm also an editor and an academic. I'm doing a PhD in queerness, kink, and neurodiversity and romance, which is fun and takes up far too much time, reading time. Like I would rather be reading. But yeah.
I'm interested.
Go
Sorry,
on.
I'm interested in how people react when you say you're doing a PhD in kinks.
I usually go, oh, it depends on who I'm talking to. So often it's that, oh, I'm doing a PhD on romance. I'm interested in the intersection between queerness and neurodiversity and kink. And you do it like that, and they're like, oh, that sounds interesting. And
Okay.
then romance bits, I'm like, yeah, I just want to be called Dr. Romance. Like,
Amazing.
and then as Ali, I write paranormal romances and erotic romances, and as Ellie, I write content warnings, littles. I write little romances, queer little romances. Previously a mix of queerness, and now I've gone fully sapphic. So that's got daddy kink in it, and mummy kink, and ZZ kink if the tops are non-binary. So
Sorry, what is ZZ King?
oh, ZZ kink. So it's basically a term for like a daddy or a mummy if the person's non-binary.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Wow.
You're
You learn something new every day.
Exactly, yes. So yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Flogging Faith and what inspired you to write it.
Right, so Flogging Faith comes out tomorrow. It is the second book I've written in the Rawhide Ranch universe. So Rawhide Ranch is a shared world created by Ali Bell. And basically there is a ranch in Montana and people go and do kinky things. And basically that's the premise of the world. I've had one book set there before. I have. Oh, it's going to blur it. Mandy's Little Mother's Day, which was, again, sapphic. So that had an autistic little who'd lost her little coming to the ranch and ending up falling in love with the head librarian, because of course she did. And then Flogging Faith basically is kind of a spin-off from that. So both Mandy and Amelia turn up, and Tay and Julia, who I'm going to be writing about next year. But also Bex, who is the Dom in Flogging Faith, is the best friend of Riley from Kink the Halls, which is my sleeping with my ex's mum Christmas short story romance. Because you always see these sleeping with my ex's dad, and I was like, well, I want to queer that the hell up.
I love it.
So yeah, so it's kind of almost all my books can be linked, apart from the paranormals, they kind of exist in their own world. But all my books that are contemporary can all slowly be linked in like a massive web. So it's partly sneaky on my part, because then I can sequel bait and like push go, you could also read these books, also read these. So yeah. And Flogging Faith, yeah, the premise is basically it's an autistic and ADHD woman who likes submission, but keeps on getting told that she's doing it wrong. That she's trying to top from the bottom, and she's like, I'm not, I'm just being forthright. You asked me a question, I answered it. Sorry. So she turns up at the ranch and meets Bex, who's British, has a lot of experience, and the two of them fall for each other almost immediately and just go exploring. They do private play. There's a whole scene with paint and a tree branch, which I'm very proud of. It was a lot of fun to write. But a lot of it is all about like being true to yourself and finding ways to be authentic in the way that you relate to other people. Like people go, this is the right way to do something, or this is the right way. And actually, no, it's all about finding joy and beauty in small places. And transformation is like the word that goes through the whole of that book. Faith is a potter. So like in her day job, she's creating art, and she works with like an outreach program for trans children and trans teenagers. And the idea that they can go in with something really amorphous and come out with something that looks completely different, even though it's the same thing. Like that whole theme of transformation kind of runs through the book. And there's a whole thing about both Bex and Faith becoming like physically art. So this idea of like the body as a canvas. Yeah, I kind of, it's a bit sneaky, but like I keep on pushing all like the trans agenda, like fuck all the right wingers, like sneaky.
As you should.
Oh,
That sounds really lovely.
Yeah, I really like the you mentioned like the idea of the transformation, even like with ceramics. Like I really love it. That's wonderful. Yeah,
It's really nice. I mean, one of my friends does pottery. Me and my girlfriend were there yesterday, actually. Sorry, I'm all of a sudden really bunged up, and this was not the case half an hour ago. The moment you started the podcast, yeah. So my friend did, well, she's a doctor, but she also does pottery on the side. So we were all there throwing clay around, and it really surprises me how much work you have to do, but also the creative process of taking this lump of something and turning it into something completely else is really quite remarkable. But I think it's a good metaphor for like queerness and transness in general.
Plus pottery is hot.
I was terrible at it, but my girlfriend was really good at it, and she was like, "Do you want another go?" I was like, "No, I'm okay sitting here. You keep all good."
that's really funny because this morning I
sorry.
was looking at like pottery classes or where you at least can paint your mug. So I was on theme without even knowing properly.
That was me and my girlfriend's first date. Like our first proper date, she took me pottery painting and then bowling. Like the most fun thing ever.
So sweet. So I'm interested what draws you to romance and erotica and kink.
I mean, there are. Can I swear on this?
Go for it. We swear all the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm neurodiverse as fuck. And my special interest is neurodiversity, anxiety, mental health, kink, queerness, and how they all link together. So I've made it both my day job, like the writing, the editing. I've made it into my PhD, and I made it into my hobby. That's why I write it. I'm genuinely fascinated in it. And as someone who practices kink, I feel really strongly about representation. I think almost all my characters are neurodiverse. I think they were before I consciously made them neurodiverse, and now they are definitely neurodiverse. But also like fat rep. In Apples Hung Like Stars and Their Fruits Like Honey, both of the mortals are short and fat, and it's celebrated. Like the Fae Queen in the Apples Hung Like Stars is like she overflowed as if the universe could never have enough of her because fatness is hot. So like representation is really important, but also I think there's a certain responsibility we have if we're writing kink and sex to make sure that consent is at the very heart of it, because you can do the most depraved things as long as both of you are fully in it, or both, however many people are engaged, are fully in it. And I think that's really important. And I'm going to Smut Lovers in Florida in September, and I'm giving a talk with Eden Bradley about consent, self-safety, and negotiation. And then I'm running a workshop on writing ethical sex. Now, I love dark romance. Just finished reading Tris Six Venom by Penelope Douglas, Sapphic. So good. But like one of the big conversations I want to have there is about using like content notes, because a lot of people get really funny about it. Oh, why do we have to content note? Oh, it just spoils it. Like I had a friend who was in a car accident, and I referenced and had a flashback to a car accident in my book, and I didn't content note it. It didn't occur to me, and they had a full episode because of it. And it made me really think, like, it's not just about, I think we have a responsibility to our readers. They need to be able to opt in as you would to a scene. So the idea of, and I quite like, I always do an author's note at the beginning, so you can just skip it if you don't want to. But I know a lot of authors use like a QR code that takes you to the website. So you can, and also it means that like if you do the sample of the book, you can scan the QR code and go direct to the website without even having bought the book in the first place, to make sure that this is something that's going to work for you. I can't remember what the question was because autism, ADHD, brain's gone.
Right, because my dog just started playing with his ball and I was trying not to laugh the whole time. The question was,
That's what she said.
the question was what draws you to kink in particular, but I feel like you answered it well.
Okay, that's okay. I like relationships. I like looking at how people relate to each other. It's I read a lot of romance growing up. I have a lot of romance. I own over 1,000 books. It is officially a library is defined as a collection of 1,000 or more books, and I have one, and that makes me very happy. And most, if not all of them, are romance or sci-fi fantasy with romantic storylines. As someone who's autistic, relating to people and understanding how people relate to each other hasn't always been easy. So I just read voraciously from a very, very young age. Read everything I could get my hands on how people relate to each other, to basically learn how people, and I didn't know I was autistic till about 2 years ago, which in hindsight was ridiculous. How many people own like 60 tarot decks because they found something interesting once? Yeah, so I think that's one of the main reasons. And also my grandma had a copy of a Mills and Boon book on her shelf. My grandma is Italian, doesn't really read much, and she had this 3-in-1, and there was one book in it, One Fine Night, I think it was called, by Joe Lee, and it was a temptation, and I picked up and I read it, and the woman in it didn't have a family. She didn't end up with a family at the end of the book. She has this really, in hindsight, not that steamy, but for 10-year-old me, it was very steamy. This night of passion, and then she comes in the next day to work and discovers that the guy she just slept with is the guy who's just bought the company, and he used her to do it. And there's a scene where she wears this red suit and goes in like full power suit mode, and he like loses his mind. And I suddenly went, oh, I don't have to be a wife and a mother. I can be a businesswoman. I can use who I am as like armor and a shield. And it was a really interesting moment. I do not think that my mother necessarily, my mum found me reading the book and confiscated it, and I tracked it down 20 years later, so I have a copy on my shelf. But I think it's, romance, that's kind of why I like romance. And also the reason I like sapphic romance and queer romance specifically is because it feels incredibly radical. And it feels very political. Writing queer romances, writing happy ever afters for people who don't get to see themselves reflected every day in general media is both important and often also joyful. There is as much space for queer joy as there is for queer pain, and we should celebrate both. I talk a lot. I'm sorry, you're asking questions.
No, it's so great. But it's funny that you mentioned like studying people, because I was reading I've actually got it here. Women and Girls with Autism Spectrum Disorder. I was reading that quite recently, and it said like, whereas like men who are autistic gravitate towards like objects, like, or like dinosaurs, or like, you know, trains, like the stereotypical ones. Like women are quite often more hyperfixated on the way people work, the way that like TV show characters act and celebrities and things like that. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that.
I think women, cis women, but also trans women to a certain extent, and anyone who's AFAB is socialized to mask in general.
Yes.
Not just masking autism, like we're socialized to be quiet, to be well behaved, be all these things. So it just feels like a natural extension of that to mask everything else.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, that's not how I'm supposed to behave. And the entire world is telling me I'm supposed to be all these things. So this must be the same as well. And when you unpack that and start unmasking both as a woman and as an autistic woman, the amount of trauma that builds up from masking is really fascinating, because basically the whole world has been telling you you are wrong. And then you suddenly realize, oh, wait, I wasn't wrong. I was just different. And it is both amazing and delightful because you're like, fuck, there's a reason I feel the way I do, but also really scary. And the first book I wrote with a like intentionally autistic character, which is called A Little's Unicorn, it's one of my Ellie Rose books, and the number of readers I had saying I've never read an autistic heroine before really resonated with me. And then I was like, well, people seem to like this, I should do this more. And then realized that I had been doing it all along and just hadn't realized, because much like I wrote a book, first sort of book I wrote was Forged in Flames, which I love, and it's an MF book. And then I gave it to one of my queer friends to read, and they were like, Ali, why have you put this gay woman in a relationship with a guy? And I was like, oh shit, I was doing to her what I did to me. That was clever. Oh, I understand now. It's still a great book. I would still recommend it, but like, yeah, I was like, oh, she was like, why don't you just have her hooking up with the goddess? Which is what I've ended up doing with every other book in that world. And I'm like, I see what I did here. This was interesting. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite romance tropes, and do you have some of them featuring in your books?
Yeah, I love a friends to lovers story. Love friends to lovers. I usually give my characters a certain amount of trauma. Like if they're neurospicy, then there's the neurospicy trauma, or they might have like really bad ex who treated them really badly, and like there's a lot of learning from that. In my Godstouched series, like a load of the characters have been locked behind a curtain away from the rest of the world for like a couple of centuries and are pretty traumatized from that. So when it comes to like the storylines, I don't actually like doing tons of like intensely conflict. I don't often have a breakup act. Sometimes I do, but usually I don't, because my thing is, if your communication breaks down to the point where you actually break up, then that is for me a bit of an orange flag. I love reading it, but I feel like I traumatize my characters enough without giving them that extra level of trauma myself. So friends to lovers, and my girlfriend was my best friend for 8 years, and then like last year we turned around and went, oh shit, it's you. So extra level of loving the best friends to lovers trope. So
I just got goosebumps.
Oh, I'm in my sapphic dyke era, and it is the best thing in the world. I'm so happy. I like world building. So for me, one of the things I love more than anything else, like I can read any trope. I do love a bit of false proximity. Snowed in. Oh, it doesn't like that awkwardness. But I love world building. So if you give me, whether it's a small town or a big city or like an urban fantasy, like a world that feels fully fleshed out, where you have side characters that you end up falling in love with and wanting to follow into other ropes, that's what I love most in romance, like that kind of community feel. As Ellie, mostly I write very short stories between sort of 5 and 15,000 words. So things that people can read on their lunch break. But in each of them, you have like these best friends, and these characters pop up, and then you know they're going to have the next book, and they're going to have that book. And then even though they have their small little romance, you know that they're going to pop up before and after. And I like that sense of continuity and revisiting people and worlds that we've seen before.
Yeah. And could you tell us a little bit about your Godstouched Universe?
Yes. I love this, so I've just had this one out, which is The Apples Hung Like Stars, which is a sapphic fae retelling of Tamlin, set in a fae-owned sex club, because of course it is. So you've got in this book, basically the premise of the Godstouched world is that magic has been leaking back into the world. All the gods have been stuck behind the veil, which is kept kind of amorphous, and we don't quite know much about it yet, mainly because I haven't worked out all the details about it yet. But the veil kind of has kept the gods separate from the world for so long, and now they're coming back into the universe. And in the ways of gods, they are meddling in the lives of mortals. And sometimes that's just interfering, sometimes that's falling in love with them. So I had the first two in my my Free Hunt series. So this is Value and Visions, which has one of Boudica's daughters and a librarian turned oracle falling in love when the warrior princess met the librarian, which I think is a great tagline. And that focuses on British, like ancient Briton goddesses. And at the moment I'm doing a load of Irish mythology. So I've had Liban, the mermaid goddess, in a short story in the Pull of the Tide anthology, and that's going to be re-released in September. I've had the Morrigan falling in love with a mortal who's been hiding from her abusive ex-husband, who turns up and does not last the book. I've never killed someone on page before. It was very exciting. It's as dark as I really get. And then you've got these two at the moment. So you've got Cleodna, who is the queen of the Banshees, falling in love with Janet, and it's a retelling of Tamlin, where, as opposed to Tam being a fuckboy, he sort of tells Janet about the club and she goes, and then the Fae Queen falls in love with her, and Tam is kind of like on the side, not really there. And I'm currently finishing off the manuscript for Their Fruits Like Honey, which comes out on the 31st of this month, which is Goblin Market. So Lizzie is a very quiet librarian, turns up at the sex club in her cardigan with a long skirt and her glasses, because her sister has disappeared for 24 hours and her sister's a bit of a dick. Lizzie is Lizzie. And then Ethel, who is Cleodna's sister, also one of the queen of the Fae, basically goes, I like the fact that you're really loyal and not fickle like most mortals that I'm used to. And then they end up doing depraved things in a variety of ways. But really, it's really fun. And all the gods and goddesses and the fae that I'm using are from real mythology. I'm sort of like part pagan. So like I've worked with Morrigan, I haven't worked with the fae because you don't fuck with the fae. But like the other goddesses I've worked with, and it's a really fun way of sort of exploring different myths and legends. I can set things in different areas so that my ADHD brain doesn't get bored with the concept. So like I get to work with different pantheons. I have a series planning out which is set in North Italy based on Etruscan gods, which are sort of pre-Roman gods. And they're all Cathlonic and all underworldy. Oh, hello, lovely dog. They're also underworldy dogs. They're all underworldy gods. And then I have a series out that starts in February, trilogy in the series, which, assuming everything goes to plan, will have Leni Kaufman covers, which is very exciting.
Ooh.
And those have river demons, so nixes, and it will be set in just outside Arundel, which is down in Sussex here. So they are very like Freed Hunt is based in the South Downs near Brighton. Then Arran Nix trilogy is set just outside Brighton in along the River Arun. The Irish ones are set near Dingle, which is like the furthest point in Ireland, which is just unbelievably beautiful. So yeah, I think I answered your question. I kind of went off on one.
You did.
I love this series. And I'm writing, I took a break from it. I had a really bad breakup 2 years ago, and I took a break from writing Ellie books and just wrote Ellie for a while. And then I came back to it this year, and I'm writing first person present tense, which I've never done before, and the books are like flying out. I'm like, oh, I have all these stories I need to tell, which is a lot of fun.
Wonderful.
Less swords than I know would be preferable for the podcast.
Is there a reason you gravitate towards retellings?
I mean, the business answer is they're really popular right now. Like they're really, really in, but also I've always loved myths and legends. And I've really, really loved gods and goddesses. And even when I was first planning these like 10 years ago, like picked stories and retold them. And I like queering up old stories, and I like taking them and giving the women more autonomy than they might have originally had. Like in Goblin Market, like Lizzie sacrifices everything to save her sister Laura.
Mhm.
And she's the good one. She's always been good. She's the perfect one. And I like the fact that in this book, like, she goes to save her sister. Her sister is just like, well, fuck you, you spoiled my night of fun. Disappears off, and Lizzie's like, well, I'm bored of being the good girl. I want to be bad for a while, and gets to actually like reclaim some of her own autonomy through it. And the complicated relationship between her and sister gets explored a little bit more. And it sort of parallels like Cleodna and Ethel. Like in legend, Cleodna turns Ethel into a white cat for a while because they piss each other off so much. So then you've got these parallels between sisters and how they interact, which I found quite interesting and fun to play with. But it also makes good business sense. Like, there is a new retelling category on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, and they are very popular. And I don't want to just write the same old rewrite the same old Greek myths, because everyone is doing it. And I like them. Like, I have all the Katie Robert books. I read Scarlet and Claire. Like, Lore Olympus, absolutely delicious. But also I've chosen to write around myths and legends that I have a personal connection to, whether that's people that I've worked with or it's where I've come from. So like Etruscan gods are based around the area that my grandmother came from in Italy. Like I'm part Irish. My dad's mum is Irish, so that is all based from my own. So I feel like I'm drawing from a base that I already have a connection to, and I'm interested in that. And also, it's not as saturated a market. There's space. I say that. I mean, Tamlin, obviously, Sarah J. Maas has done Tamlin, and a lot of her readers didn't realise that she did not make up the legend of Tamlin. It was Tamlin. It existed long before Sarah J. Maas. So I haven't had any backlash from that yet, but we'll see. But yeah, I think that, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Have you read A Sweet Sting of Salt by Rose Sutherland? Because I think you would really enjoy it. It's a retelling of the Selkie wife, and it's sapphic.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did you say? Please repeat that so I can put it down.
A Sweet Sting of Salt by Rose Sutherland.
Yeah.
We had her on.
Yeah.
We had her on earlier this year, and it was great.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Okay, that is going.
Yeah, I just had to. I had to throw it out there.
Oh god, yeah, and any kind of mermaidy retellings, obsessed with at the moment. The Pull of the Tide anthology I was in is out for like another couple of weeks, like 3 weeks, I think. And that has, I think, 7 or 8 different mermaid based and sapphic mermaid stories in it, and that's delicious, like really exciting. My one is really short, it's only about 4,000 words, but like I get to use Lee Ban, who's known as the mermaid saint, and her response to when Neve says this is like, oh, for fuck's sake, I remember now what the Christians tried to do to me, which is to like sanitize her. And she has this incredible history, and then the Christians go, oh, but then we caught her 300 years later and she gave up her tail so that she could go to church. And they're like, no, that doesn't seem likely.
We do have a listener question from Lillian from our Discord. They want to know about Brighton. What are your favorite things about Brighton, and are there any good queer spaces or events?
Absolutely. My favorite thing about Brighton at the moment is for listeners and watchers in the US, there have been a ton of riots in the UK over the last couple of weeks. Far right arseholes being far right arseholes. And Wednesday night there was a big thing leading up to it, and we were told like people are coming down. So there were 15 of them, 15 far right thugs who turned up, and there were 2,000 of us. 2,000. There was a samba band. It was amazing.
Basically another Pride event.
So like a load of my friends went to like the main counter protest. I went to Afrory Books, which is a Black-owned bookshop. It's one of 2 Black-owned bookshops in the UK. And we were there to support Carolyn and make sure she was okay, because it was literally around the corner from the protest. We had a whole plan, like if the window got smashed, we were going to lock ourselves in the kitchen and call the police. But the fact that like so many people turned out to support, that's one of the things I like most about Brighton. I love the fact that it's queer friendly. a lot of my friends are involved in like the activist scene, so they do an alternative pride called DIY Pride, which is not sponsored by any corporations. They don't take any sponsorship. It's locally organized by like a queer co-op. They run workshops. They had Queers for Palestine had a stall. The Death Collective had a stall. It really kind of community events. Community is the thing, and also the sea. I mean, who doesn't love
Yeah,
the
of
sea?
course. I'd love to live by the sea.
Lush. There aren't as many sapphic spaces as I'd like. There's a pub called The Actors, which is known as a sapphic space. They do a dyke night regularly. They're planning on starting like a dyke market, which is really cool. There is an amazing restaurant called The Witches, which is owned by a Polish lesbian couple, which does like the best food. Oh my God, their food's phenomenal. And they are just like the best people as well. But yeah, Brighton, it's all about the people and the community for me. Like, I grew up in Croydon. Croydon is nice, but I feel safer down here. I'm aware that that's also partly because I'm a white woman and I'm going to feel safer in most places. And I'm also cis, but my trans and non-binary friends have a better experience here than they have done elsewhere in the country, which is really good. And we have like trans pride down here as well, which is huge. And yeah, and it's fun. It's fun. Party times.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, we're running out of time, so before we go, we always ask this question. What is something that you're currently enjoying, whether it's a book, a show, a movie, or anything? Just give it a little boost.
I mean, I have just finished Trist 6 Venom, which is a YA dark bully romance, but sapphic. And I picked it up and thinking, this might be all right. Oh my gosh, I was addicted. It was fantastic. And also, I then went and read the sequel, which is a straight romance, and I haven't read a straight romance in quite some time. I've been really enjoying like checking out book boxes as well at the moment. I really like Rainbow Crate, some of the stuff that like Illumicrate and After is it the After Dark? Can't remember. It's the romance one for Illumicrate have had 2 sapphic books back to back, and I'm like, yes, more sapphics. So that's kind of stuff, and also Yuri manga. I found like I'm a little bit, there's this one which I really really love, which is I married my best friend to shut my parents up, and it's a one shot and it's adorable. My friend got it for me because they saw it and it made them laugh and did not realize that was going to spark an entire obsession. So now I have a spinny bookcase which has mainly just Yuri manga on it. Working my way through. So yeah, those are all the things I'm kind of loving at the moment. And yeah, and urban fantasy, anything urban fantasy is kind of, I want more queer, specifically sapphic urban fantasy.
Yeah, same.
So yeah, that's kind of my stuff, I think.
Wonderful. I could talk to you all day. I'm sad time's running out.
Oh, last time I did one of these, it was supposed to be an hour and we ended up talking for like 2 hours, and she was like, I'm gonna have to cut off this stuff. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Like,
Thank you. So there we have it. Reminder that Flogging Faith, Ellie's newest book, is out on Thursday, which is 15th of August.
Yes.
So give it a read if you like kinky stuff. I'd never heard of half the words that Ellie uses kink-wise. I'm very innocent to that. But it's weird how talking to someone gives you a completely new perspective, because it was like, I'm not really into kink. But then like hearing how she connects it to neurodiversity and queerness, like that changes it.
And then it makes you think, because I was thinking like the only kinky media I've ever seen or read was 50 Shades.
Yep.
And then a little bit of the few books that came after it, just because it was the popular thing to read.
Yeah, it's true.
I think Katie Roberts, Ali mentioned her. She does the Greek retellings. I read only the first one, but I want to read more. But like I necessarily thought of it as a kink, but there was a little bit of that, and it was done very differently, so it really threw me. I'm not sure I think I would enjoy it differently if I went into it like with that in mind. But
Yeah.
it's very it is a lot about communication and how the author like shows you all
Yeah.
gives you all the information that you don't have because you're not part of that community or that's not something that
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And you don't find that in straight people romance most of the time. Like, I think it only just became a non-radical thing for consent to be discussed in romance in general and straight romance.
Yeah.
But like, I guess queer people have been doing it a lot longer than that. Like, straight people just don't know how to act.
Yeah.
It's the truth, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was lovely to talk to Ali. Um, in the spirit of retellings, do you have any that you want to see or any that's your most favoritist?
Look, I think we as I mean Czech people we have a lot of or like in Slavic there are a lot of myths and a
Yeah.
lot of really interesting stories that could be done in retellings and I am thinking of a few just because it's something that I
Yay.
grew up with. It's something like that feels very close to my home. Or we had like one of the greatest writers and uh poetry writers in our history, and there was actually one that I was thinking of while we were talking with Ali,
Mhm.
which was it's one of the most brutal ones. It gave me nightmares and I cried when I read it. It's about vodník, which is like this man who lives in lakes and is all, like all green, and he kidnapped a woman, forced her to live in his lake. They had a baby, and she returned with the baby to her mom. No, without she went without the baby to her mom just to visit her mom, and she was supposed to return back by the sundown, but she didn't. And the creature was like, "I'm warning you, you have to go back." She was like, "No, I'm not," because her mom like kept her there, and he cut off the baby's head. And that's how it ended. And it was like the sentence, little body without a head, head without a little body. That's how it ended. And it's like one of the really iconic things in our culture.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
From at the beginning, I was like, oh, monster fuckers would love this.
I know. And I was like, I could do that, but without the brutality of it.
Without the headless child.
Yeah,
That
without
would
the
be
headless
good.
child. I think I wouldn't be able to do it. It genuinely, I remember like it's such an experience to read that. And I remember it to this day, like I was at my cottage, I was in my elementary school. You have to like read it as part of like your literature course. And I remember like I was crying and I was terrified.
Yeah.
And because we're in the middle of nowhere at cottage, like you keep seeing things, like
Mhm.
it's one of those like things that you remember for the rest of your life. But other than that, like the book, this sort of collection of stories have some really good stuff that could be as retellings also.
Yeah.
It's very brutal. I guess that's our thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
To be fair, there are a lot of brutal retellings. I remember studying oh shit, The Bloody Chamber by what's her name? Angela. I tried to wipe it from my memory.
Ah. The only Angela I know is Bassett.
Angela Carter.
Okay.
And that was like when they introduced it to me at the wrong time because when I was 16, I didn't want to read about a metaphor for a vagina as a chamber, and stuff like that. But now I can appreciate how much creativity it takes to like write feminist-led retellings of stories and like highlight the viciousness of men because in the retellings like it's either the Red Riding Hood wolf or like Bluebeard. I think it was Bluebeard because like apparently he cut off his wife's heads, right?
I don't
So
know
she
that
does
one.
that. Yeah. So yeah, I think I would appreciate those more now.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
think as
yeah.
I was just gonna say, as I get older, I do appreciate like more macabre retellings, I
I
guess.
know. Yeah, same. And I like, and even like stories, and especially the short stories. And I'm sort of like, lately I've been thinking of a lot about the books I've read or the short stories I read as a child, like at school.
Mm.
Like again, like one that I'm thinking of is by the same author as that one. But it was two sisters, I think, and one of them was supposed to get married or was married to a king or prince or something, and her sister like cut her into pieces and she buried her body. And then he got like this, the spinning wheel, that's actually the word.
Oh yeah.
And the spinning wheel was thinking where he can find his wife. And then he like built her back up. And it's very interesting. And I think I would like to see like the revenge part because I'm a slut for revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, there's always a spinning wheel in a fairy tale or like
know.
any type of those like gothic-y stories, and I
Yeah.
need to. But yeah, I'm always a slut for like Gatsby retellings. Now that it's in public domain, I'm loving that. We've had a few. The
Oh.
Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May was
Mm.
my favorite.
Yeah.
And
And of course, I mean, I grew up on Percy Jackson, so
yeah,
I mean, I'm bisexual. I have ADHD, like Greek mythology always. That's in my bloodstream.
mine is Norse, I think. I
Oh,
really
yeah.
enjoyed writing my Goddess Hell retelling, Kiss of Death. And I just love Viking stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd really love to write a Dirty Dancing retelling, but sapphic.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think about it a lot. Or The Lost Boys. Anything with vampires or Patrick Swayze.
Mm.
I love any 80s movie, so I think there's so much that can be done
Yeah.
with those types of things.
If only we had the time and energy to do that.
I know, man. If somebody could commission me to write a sapphic Dirty Dancing retelling, that would be great, please, and thanks.
Manifesting it now.
Yeah, get my candle out.
Yes.
Manifest.
Well, anything else you'd like to add before we go?
Oh, yes. We're running a giveaway this week. We have it. So when this goes out, you'll have 2 more days left. So it finishes on Friday,
17th.
16th.
Oh no, yes.
Never know, man. Due dates. Friday the 16th of August, it finishes around afternoon time, late afternoon. So, and it's all swords and sapphics themed because we're celebrating 1,000 followers on Instagram. So all the books available have swords and they have sapphics. And if they don't have swords, they have pointy objects that can be used as weapons. So either way, a woman is wielding something sharp, which we love. Yeah. And Kiss of Death is on there, my book. So if you want to win, the first prize is paperbacks, the second prize is 7 ebooks. You could win 7 ebooks. Oh.
How rigged is the contest, the giveaway gonna be? So like what? Asking for a friend.
Depends how much that friend would be willing to pay me.
Okay. We'll chat about it in a minute.
Okay.
I'll ask her.
Yeah. Yeah. And the physical winners will also get some swords and sapphics bookmarks.
I don't need the bookmarks. I mean, my friend doesn't need the bookmarks when they're gonna win.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And as always, make sure to keep up with our blog because we have some interesting author interviews coming up quite soon. I think our next one is with Francesca McMahon. Later this month. So
well, remember to
support women's rights.
Most importantly, support women's wrongs.
Even if they don't go home from the lake monster, even if they don't,
if they do go home and get their child killed.
just don't fuck lake monsters, I guess, is the
It wasn't her fault. She got like, it wasn't that nice like monster fucker. She literally got kidnapped against her will. Something different and new for us. I mean,
yeah. I wouldn't know anything about
yeah. Usually the kidnapping that I read about are very consensual,
that.
or at least enjoyed by all parties. Yeah.
We love a consensual kidnapping.
You know, fucking I do. You know that.
I'm not much better. I read a kidnapping one recently, LJ Shen.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I'm on the dark side now as well.
soon enough you're gonna start getting all the alien fucker ones.
I'm still not there yet, I think.
No, I know.
I
That's
prefer-
okay. We can take your time. One step at a time. It's okay.
I prefer monsters yet.
That's fine. It's fine. More like
Aliens are too
Avatar.
alien for me. You know?
See what you did there. That's fine. Again, like we have time. It's okay.
Yeah, we do have time. We do.
And until next time, we shall see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile. Thank you for listening to Swords and Sapphics. You can enjoy a new episode every Wednesday.
While waiting, you can visit our website, swordsandsuffix.com, and find lots of articles, interviews, and guest pieces.
Feel free to contact us with any requests, questions, or inquiries through a form on our website or directly to our email, swordsandsuffixpodcast@gmail.com.